Spring is now around the corner, and this is the right time for us to start the propagation of a lot of our shrubs, plants, and trees from hardwood cuttings. So we're gonna start with the propagation of our willow. If memory serves me right, this is the Kashmir willow, and I got this from Spiti. I got this willow as a hardwood cutting. This came as a little stub, and this has become this very huge, tall tree. It's almost about 30 to 40 feet tall, and it's an excellent tree to grow if you want something to grow fast. This has grown this tall, I think, in the space of the last 3 years, compared to say a conifer like a deodar, which grows only a couple of inches every year. You're going to plant it maybe around the border somewhere so that it works like a windbreaker. So I'm going to be looking at pencil thin cuttings like this branch over here. This is pencil thin. So this works for me. So maybe two cuttings from here. Look for a little healthier branch. Maybe one over here. This works as well. Again, pencil thick. For now, these three are going to be my source for all the cuttings for the propagation of this Kashmir willow. So this is not exactly hardwood because this is semi-dormant. The leaves have started sprouting, but I think we'll have success with the willow because the willow is extremely easy to propagate, and it becomes this huge tree in a matter of just a couple of years. Next, we will propagate our grapevines. We propagate the grapevines as soon as we prune them in winters. And once they prune, the canes are turned into hardwood cuttings to be propagated further into grapevines. These canes that we have removed, that we have pruned out, are otherwise useless. So we turn them into hardwood cuttings for propagation. Now to hydrate all these cuttings before I start burying them in a medium, I am going to keep them in this bucket full of water with the slanting cut side down. We're also going to propagate our native shrubs, and this is my favorite native shrub called the autumn olive. The botanical name is Ilignus umbellata, I think that's how you pronounce it. So this is also the easiest native shrub that you can propagate from hardwood cuttings, and I'm going to choose again pencil thin New Year shoot from this huge autumn olive shrub that we have right at the entrance of MeenaBagh. Now this is the entrance when you come to MeenaBagh. This is the entrance, and you will be greeted first by the overarch of this autumn olive, and it is really beautiful. It has all these lovely berries, and a lot of birds tend to roost on it, nest on it. We want a lot more of these, hence the propagation. It has to be a preferably 1 or 2 year old shoot, and this one is 1 or 2 year old as well. Because if you want good success rate, this is the kind of shoot that you need to pick from. I've also planted some of the autumn olive in my farm, so we're going to check on those autumn olives and see whether we have some more 1 year old shoots there. Here is one autumn olive that we planted in the middle of our farm between two trees. Autumn olive is a nitrogen fixer, so this is the reason we have planted it between our trees, because it tends to also distribute nitrogen to the neighboring trees. This is one of the very rare qualities that plants have to fix nitrogen, especially a shrub. So this works almost like a legume. In nodules or legumes, you have bacteria residing in a symbiotic relationship with the legumes, and that bacteria is called the rhizobium bacteria. In the case of autumn olive, we have another bacteria called the Frankia bacteria. The function is the same. It fixes nitrogen in the soil, except that the autumn olive is going to have much deeper roots. It's going to go much deeper, and it's going to be a shrub which is also going to give us these berries that we can use to make jams, and we can also eat them, of course. Also, this is going to be interesting element to have on a diverse permaculture farm. So while we're here, we can also take cuttings from our Seabuckthorn. So we have a Seabuckthorn shrub over here. Again, this is also a nitrogen fixer apart from the medicinal properties that Seabuckthorn has. You can use its leaves, you can use its berries. So it's a very useful sort of a shrub. And this particular one is, there are two species that we have in this part of the world. This one is the one called Seabuckthorn salisfolia. The other one is Seabuckthorn remnoid, if I am pronouncing it right. So I am again going to be looking at 1-year-old shoots from here, and this one looks like a 1-year-old shoot. I'm going to take this out. So again, just like the autumn olive, Seabuckthorn also fixes nitrogen. It also has the bacteria, the same bacteria, the Frankia bacteria, residing in the nodules. So these are the two shrubs that we have over here, which fix nitrogen in the soil, and they have the same symbiotic relationship as the legumes with a bacteria. In the case of these two shrubs, the bacteria is called Frankia bacteria. Now, the important thing to remember about the sea buckthorns is that sea buckthorn is a dioecious sort of a plant, which means that it has male and female plants. This one over here is a female plant. Now, I also need to propagate the males because the males are going to provide all the pollen for this female to be able to fertilize its flowers. So this one is a female. We'll come back over here in the farm and look for the male and take cuttings out of the male as well and propagate them as well. So what we're going to do with the grapevine hardwood cuttings is that we're going to use coco peat. This is the coco peat, and we are just going to pop all of these one by one, bury them in this coco peat, and also use a humidity dome, because the humidity dome is going to keep the humidity intact. Usually they don't recommend the humidity dome, but we're going to just put a tarp on top, and the tarp is going to keep the moisture inside. The idea is to keep the moisture inside because the air over here in winters is dry. So we have the rooting hormone over here again, just like the humidity dome or the humidity cover. This is also an option, but it tends to increase your chances of success. So it's good to use it if you have it, so that you can increase your chances of success. So all that I'm going to do now here is pop these hardwood cuttings that I took just a while ago. And again, the slanting cut is going to have a lot of surface area for the roots to emerge from. So I just stick them in like this. One by one. And this is 37. So hopefully, if all goes well, we'll have 37 new grapevines. Now we'll start with the propagation of our nitrogen fixing shrubs, autumn olive and the sea buckthorn. So again, the same process. You need cuttings, and the cuttings are going to be having a couple of nodes in them. Here we are starting with the autumn olive. This one, again, we give it a slanting cut at the bottom and keep 1, 2, 3 nodes over here. There's fourth over here, right where I made the cut, and a straight cut on the top, and then we're going to bury it in our medium over here, and the medium over here that we are choosing is sand. We are not using coir over here because this is a sort of a sturdy sort of a shrub, and this is also called a pioneer species. It's a species which can grow anywhere because it has this ability to fix nitrogen. And I hope these hardwood cuttings also work. So they go all inside one by one. I'll make the cuttings as we go along. Slanting cut over here, top cut, slanting cut, and top cut here. This is as much thin as we want our cuttings to be, not any thinner than this. Ideally, they should be about a pencil thickness because that's the ideal recommendation for hardwood cuttings. Slanting cut always at the bottom. We'll keep them to hydrate maybe for a bit. Too thin won't work. For the autumn olive as well, we are going to use this medium, the hormone, except that where we are burying it, we are not burying it in coco peat. It's not a potting mix, but regular sand. Autumn olive grows very easily. It's a pioneer species, but this is the first time we are propagating it from hardwood cutting, so we don't know how efficient it's going to be. But looking at the reputation of autumn olive as being a pioneer species, I hope all these hardwood cuttings would be successful and we have a lot of autumn olives to plant. Now we are planting the autumn olives on our boundaries as windbreakers. They're going to be also the roosting spaces, roosting shelters for birds. They're going to be places where birds are going to nest. They are also going to produce a lot of berries for the birds. We want a thriving population of all these birds on our borders, and they'll only come if they have something, some shelter for them, some food for them. And these bushes that we have, these native shrubs that we have, they need to be preserved, they need to remain intact on our borders because they perform a very important ecological role not only for the forests but also for the farm. So this was the autumn olive, and now we are going to start with Seabuckthorn. The species that we have, the variety that we have over here is Seabuckthorn silisfolia. Now this is the variety that we have, and this is the female. Again, we give it a slanting cut at the bottom and a straight cut on the top. We put it in this bucket to hydrate it. Okay, so we've got a bucket full of sea buckthorn hardwood cuttings over here, and now we just have to bury them in the sand. So again, we use the rooting hormone. So in Spiti, you mostly have sandy soil, and that's the kind of medium that we have over here. We just have sand. Additionally, we are using the rooting hormone. Rooting hormone, if it's available to you, it's wonderful because your chances of success increase if you're using the hormone because it tends to sort of help in the sprouting of the roots. Otherwise, it is not very essential. With that, we are done with the sea buckthorn and the autumn olive, both of them in this one tree. Next, let's propagate some rootstock. This morning we grafted our cherries on the cherry rootstock, and this is that cherry rootstock. This is actually the top half of that rootstock. The rootstock is Jesla 5, and now because this is the top half and this is absolutely useless otherwise, but because this is the rootstock, This will still take root and we'll get free cherry rootstocks for next year. So all of these are also going to be fashioned into hardwood cuttings and put in some medium so that we have cherry rootstock, Jesla 5 rootstocks on which to graft more cherries next year onwards. That's quite a bundle, and we're going to make a selection for the right hardwood cuttings to take out of this. Keep this on the ground now. This is done. This is our Seabuckthorn and the autumn mullet. So we got quite a choice over here. We don't want to use all of them. You're going to select them for width, which is going to be pencil size. So this is the kind of width that we want, a pencil width, and this is ideal for us to take cuttings from. So again, as with everything else, as with the sea buckthorn, as with the autumn olive, we're going to make a slant cut at the bottom, top cut over here, slant cut obviously because we want more surface area for the roots to sprout from. And we're going to use the same medium. We're going to use sand here as well. And this is another hardwood cutting here. And we push it into the bucket for hydration. So here we are. We have a bucket full again of the Jeslas 5 rootstock, and hope the propagation succeeds and we have a lot of rootstock on which to graft our new varieties of cherries. We're going to have the same medium sand over here, and all of these are going to be also dipped into this rooting hormone and then buried in the sand. So there you go. So this is Gesla 5 rootstock, the cherry rootstock, a doffing rootstock, the rootstock that we use to graft our cherries on. We want a doffing rootstock, and the rootstock is very hard to come by. So it makes sense to propagate your own. All of this is going to be free. So even if half of them sprout roots, it works for us because we are getting them from virtually nothing. So this was basically waste. So this is the first time we are trying to propagate the rootstocks like this. And if we succeed, we will not be that dependent on nurseries year after year. So we're back here at the shrubbery, and now we're looking at some shrubs to propagate. This shrub over here, Prinsepia utilis, is the one that we're going to propagate, as well as the rose hips. So I'm going to take a cutting from here. I'm not very sure. This is the first time I'm taking cuttings and trying to propagate these shrubs from hardwood cuttings. These have already borne flowers, and I'm not sure whether these are going to propagate well. But nevertheless, this is an experiment. I am going to try and take the cuttings and see what happens. So I'll just take this branch over here. This one. All of these have got these beautiful flowers, and these flowers are the ones that our native bee, the Apis bee, is going to use for nectar, for pollen, to feed itself at this time in winter when no other flowers are flowering right now. I think over here I might have found a 1-year-old shoot which is not flowering, and this might be a better idea to take. This one here, this one here. I think I'll go with these because it's an experiment. So let's see whether these are going to work or not. So here we are with the Principia utilis, that's the botanical name. Locally, I think they call it bhikal, depending on what region in Himachal Pradesh you're from. Again, I have a slanting cut at the bottom. I place it in the water to hydrate it. I take one more cutting here. It's got all the flowers. I think I need to remove all the flowers. And removing all the flowers here among the thorns is going to be a really delicate business, but remove I have to because they're going to suck all the energy and they are not going to allow this cutting to root. And there goes the last one. Now we need to bury them in this tray full of sand. Again, we'll use the rooting hormone. And in goes the last of the vehicle or the Principia utilis. And we have buried them over here. We have put them over here in one crate along with the willow, the Kashmiri willow on one side and the Principia utilis or the vehicle on the other side. Now I'm going to go and get some male Seabuckthorn cuttings because remember, Seabuckthorns are either male or female. So we have already got the hardwood cuttings of the female buried in these crates over here. Now we need male Seabuckthorns and I'm going to go into the field and get some male Seabuckthorn cuttings. So this over here is a male Seabuckthorn. I think you need at least one male for every 5 to 6 female Seabuckthorns and they need to be in the vicinity. My Seabuckthorns are down this line. We've got one Seabuckthorn over there and then there's one over there and then there's further down. Seabuckthorn is a little different from the other plants that we have on the farm in that it does not require the bees. It is pollinated by the wind. So they need to be not very close, but they need to be close enough for the pollination to happen. So I'm going to look for some cuttings because males are very important. Males are the ones that are going to produce all the pollen for the females. I've got these. I'm going to get some more. Maybe this one here. Okay, so we got the Seabuckthorn, male Seabuckthorn over here, and we've got this crate full of sand. And same process, we're going to take the cuttings and bury them in the sand. All right, so a slanting cut at the bottom. I think I can make 2 out of this. So this is one. What do you want this one? You want to be propagated as well? You want to come through? Come on. There you go. 2. And we can also use the rooting hormone for the Seabuckthorn. Dip it a little and bury it in the sand. So if you're going to be introducing Seabuckthorn on your farm or anywhere, if you're going to be planting it for whatever reason, you have to make sure that if you buy Seabuckthorn or you fetch it from somewhere, you also get the males because without the males, the Seabuckthorns are not going to produce you anything because, like I said, Seabuckthorns are dioecious plants, which means that they are male and female plants. Because females are the ones that produce the berries, but males are the ones that produce all the pollen for the females. So, females, without the males, you won't have any berries whatsoever. And in this crate over here, we have got Trimix 6. We have put the hardwood cuttings over here for propagation. Like in the cherries, the top end was useless, so we have repurposed it and we have used it as a hardwood cutting so that we get some more of these rootstocks. We have repurposed the rootstock as a hardwood cutting, and this hardwood cutting will become the rootstock on which we can graft cherries like this. So this is the salvia plant. It is a medicinal plant and we are going to propagate it. It's not really a hardwood cutting, but it propagates really well. So we're just going to take a cutting from here, put it in another pot so that we get an extra salvia medicinal plant for ourselves. So I'm simply going to snip it at the top where I find a little node with a little leaf and bury it in a separate pot so that we have more salvias for ourselves. Cut it from here and I bury it in the pot. Lovely smell as well. So all of these are going to be cut from here and buried in separate pots so that we get separate salvia plants. So we have now a host of hardwood cuttings over here. We have our grape canes over here propagating in this tray. Then we have the Kashmiri willow on one side in this tray, and the Prinsepia utilis, or bakel as we call it, a native shrub that we are propagating. Over here we got maybe a dozen or so of these. And then over here we have, on one side we have the female Seabuckthorn, and then on the other side we have the autumn olive. In this tray, in these two trays, we have the hardwood cuttings of the cherry rootstock Gezela 5. And hardwood cuttings are set to work for most of these. That's why you've taken hardwood cuttings of these. Blueberries, maple, and maybe hydrangeas and other flowers are going to be propagated from softwood cuttings, not from hardwood cuttings, because they tend not to perform very well. The success rate of propagation of the blueberries, the maple, hydrangeas, and some other flowers that we have, geraniums, they propagate well from softwood cuttings, not from hardwood cuttings. So what propagates well with hardwood cuttings are these: the grapes, the autumn olive, the sea buckthorn, the cherry rootstock that we have over here. Also propagated another rootstock called Cramix 6 rootstock, which functions as a rootstock for cherries. So you're gonna put all these trays away from direct sunlight, put them indoors, and maybe put a little tarp on top to retain the moisture. What we observe is that the leaves come out first. The leaves come out, but the roots are yet to form. So we should not be very optimistic about it. We have to wait and watch until it becomes very difficult to pull out the canes. When it becomes difficult to pull out the canes, that is when you can start doing the potting process, which means that it's going to take a while. It's going to take a couple of months before you start potting them separately. For now, they go indoors, we put a tarp on top and wait for some magic to happen.